There are seasons in life where it feels like heaven has gone quiet. You pray, but the words fall flat. You worship, but it feels like echoes in an empty room. You open your Bible, but nothing speaks. And you begin to wonder, is God ignoring me? Did I do something wrong? Why can't I feel him anymore? That silence can feel like a wall, like a void that stretches out with no end. And in that silence, the enemy speaks. He whispers, if God really loved you, he'd answer. If you were faithful enough, he'd show up. If your prayers mattered, you'd feel something by now. But here's what the silence never says out loud. God has used silence before, not as punishment, but as a sacred invitation. Think of the Israelites wandering for 400 years without a prophet. Think of the 400 years between Malachi and Matthew. No thunder from the skies, no voice from above. But in that silence, God was setting the stage for Jesus. Heaven's quiet isn't always a no. Sometimes it's the pause before something holy. And maybe, just maybe, that's what's happening in your life right now. Not rejection, not abandonment, but preparation. God isn't punishing you. He's pulling you deeper, past the noise, past the surface, into real faith. Not a faith that needs goosebumps, but a faith that listens in stillness, that waits without signs, that believes even when the heavens are silent. Silence is not the end of the conversation. It's the moment you stop speaking and start listening differently. You've probably heard people say, God speaks in mysterious ways. But what if the mystery is the silence itself? What if the silence is the message? Because silence doesn't always mean God is far away. Sometimes it means he's closer than you've ever realized, just not in the way you expected. Silence stretches us. It peels back all the noise, all the routine prayers, all the external confirmations. It brings us to the edge of ourselves. And that's often where real trust begins. Anyone can worship when the blessings are obvious. Anyone can praise when the answers come quickly. But when there are no answers, when your heart aches and the sky is still sealed, that's when faith becomes real. That's when it's tested, not to break, but to deepen. Think about Jesus in the garden. Even he experienced silence. He prayed with anguish. He sweat blood. And the Father didn't remove the suffering. He stayed silent and present. That's the strange tension of God's silence. He doesn't leave. He just leads differently. We often assume God's love is loud, obvious, full of fireworks. But the deepest kind of love is often quiet. A steady hand, a hidden presence, a love that doesn't perform but remains. If you're in that silent space now, don't panic. Don't rush to fill the silence with activity, distraction, or doubt. Because in that stillness, God is forming something inside you. And here's the truth you need to hold. God's silence never means his absence. It means he trusts you enough to grow, not in what you feel, but in what you know. We often think of faith as movement, walking, growing, stepping out. But what if real faith also looks like stillness? What if the silence isn't a pause in your journey, but the most important part of it? When God seems silent, he's not punishing you. He's drawing you into a different kind of relationship, one that's not built on constant reassurance, but on steady trust. This is the moment where you learn to lean on what he already said, not on what you wish he would say now. In the silence, your roots grow deeper, your motives get refined, your worship becomes less about feelings and more about surrender. Silence teaches you that God is not a feeling to be chased. He's a presence to be trusted. And when you stop demanding signs, you begin to notice whispers, the small reminders, the verse that comes to mind unexpectedly. The peace that shows up without reason, the strength to keep going even when you feel empty. That's God. He hasn't forgotten you. He's just speaking a different language now, a language that doesn't always use words, a language that forms character, deepens your endurance, and strengthens your spirit. Sometimes we confuse emotional stillness with spiritual dryness, but they're not the same. You may feel numb, but numb doesn't mean dead. It means something deeper is happening beneath the surface. The silence is not your enemy. It's your training ground. And if you stay in it long enough, you'll find something stronger than any emotional high. You'll find unwavering faith. You don't need to feel God to follow Him. That's one of the hardest and holiest truths you'll ever learn. Because feelings fade. Even the strongest fire burns low sometimes, but faith that lasts isn't built on how high the flames go. It's built on what stays lit when the flames die down. Maybe that's what this silence is for, to teach you how to walk by faith, not by sight, to remind you that God's love is not an emotion, it's a covenant. In the stillness, your heart learns to trust not what it senses, but what it knows. And what do you know? You know He's been faithful before. You know He's spoken before. You know He's moved before. You know He stayed when you didn't deserve it. You know He answered you when you least expected it. That memory of who God has been is sometimes the only thing you'll have in seasons like this, and it's enough. Because God doesn't change when your emotions do. His presence doesn't vanish just because you don't feel it. His nearness isn't measured by goosebumps or tears. It's measured by His word, and His word has already declared He will never leave you. He will never forsake you. He is near to the brokenhearted. He is close to the crushed in spirit. So even when all you can do is sit in the quiet and say, I don't feel you, but I still trust you, that's faith. That's worship. That's the kind of belief the enemy can't shake. The kind of surrender that doesn't depend on comfort. The kind of trust that makes hell nervous. Because when you still show up in the silence, you're growing in ways you can't yet see. Faith in silence isn't flashy. It doesn't look impressive. It doesn't sound spiritual. It doesn't always feel holy. Sometimes it looks like showing up with a heavy heart. Like opening your Bible and reading the same verse 3 times and still feeling nothing. Like praying and wondering if your words even reached beyond the ceiling. But here's what you need to remember. Spiritual depth is not built in emotional highs. It's carved out in the valleys, in the monotony, in the silence. This isn't wasted time. This isn't spiritual failure. This is formation. God is forming in you the kind of faith that doesn't need fireworks to stay faithful. He's developing a root system beneath the surface that can't be seen now. But one day, it will hold the weight of everything He's going to do through you. Think of Jesus again. He was led into the wilderness, not by mistake, not by sin, by the Spirit. And in that wilderness, for 40 days, He heard nothing. No voice from heaven, no angels singing. Just silence and heat and hunger and temptation. But even there, especially there, Jesus stood firm. How? Not by how He felt, not by what He saw, but by what He knew. It is written. That's how He fought the silence. That's how He answered the enemy. With the truth He had already been given, long before the silence ever came. Maybe that's the secret to this whole season. Maybe the reason it feels like God is silent now is because He already gave you what you need to survive this moment. Not a new revelation, but an old one you forgot still applies. He already said He loves you. He already said He chose you. He already said He's working all things for good. He already said He's with you. You don't need a new word. You need to stand on the one He already gave you. Maybe this is where your faith becomes real. Not in the loud moments, not in the miraculous ones, but here, in the quiet, in the space where there are no guarantees, no feelings, no clear answers, only choice. The choice to stay, to wait, to trust. Maybe that's the invitation God is offering you right now. Not to figure everything out, not to feel your way back into spiritual alignment, but to simply remain. Remain in Him. Because that's what faith actually is. Not a constant high, not an unshakable sense of clarity, but the willingness to remain when everything in you wants to run. And when you do remain, when you don't quit, something begins to shift. Not always on the outside, but deep within. You begin to realize the silence has been shaping you, strengthening you, teaching you how to love God not just for His gifts, but for who He is. Teaching you how to walk with Him when He whispers instead of shouts, how to be still instead of strive, how to rest instead of rush. It's not the loudest faith that lasts, it's the quietest faith that doesn't give up. So stay even when it's boring, stay even when it's painful, stay even when it feels like nothing's changing, because the God who seems silent is also the God who never sleeps, who never stops working, who never abandons His children. And maybe, just maybe, this silence isn't the absence of His voice. It's the presence of His hand, still writing your story. He is not far. He is not gone. He is not indifferent. He is here, and He's not finished yet. So breathe, be still, and know, even in the silence, God is still speaking.